So we'll start by sort of thinking about how these technologies compare, but from a sort of thematic perspective. And for sure that there are very many sort of metrics that you could use to evaluate them, but I've started with a few simple ones. So in terms of the capacity to deliver fuel cost savings, that really of all of those different options, that electricity is the most likely to be able to deliver fuel cost savings. That's because the production efficiency of hydrogen cryogenics is generally sort of too low to be able to be substantially cheaper than diesel, and that biofuels generally carry a cost premium, which is potentially likely to increase over time. All of those technologies are capable of addressing scope 1 emissions and also can be a sort of really useful part of the journey to net zero for fleets. All of the technologies on that list also address air quality, though with biofuels, it's slightly more of a grey area because there's some sort of nuance to that position. You see real differential between the technologies in terms of capital investments, that hydrogen is probably the least competitive at the moment and is likely to remain so. That is to do with the sort of increased costs of hydrogen containment and storage, because you require high pressure vessels, and also the high costs of hydrogen fuel cell technology, because it's typically produced in very low volumes and has a sort of relatively high complexity compared to some of the other technologies that considered there. Cryogenics and electricity are sort of somewhere between sort of where hydrogen is and diesel technology in terms of cost premium, and that's principally driven by sort of volume. And then you have biofuels, which potentially could have sort of almost no equipment in order to sort of make them feasible. It's probably worth flagging sort of the reason why that we can't sort of simply adopt biofuels at this time, which is to do with the sort of availability of feedstock. For sure, it's possible to get HVO and HVO in significant quantities, or sort of biomethane, such that you can perhaps decarbonize an individual fleets. And many fleets are using this fuel at the moment as a sort of really valuable part of their transition. And it sort of bridges a gap in the short term, whilst the sort of other technologies on that list are in sort of the development phase